Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum, consent agenda there. Do we have any change, review, poll?
No comments or changes from me.
Likewise.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second. Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
I will say, this is, I know it's probably the perfect time there, so I'm gonna say anyways. I like the page number, so it's easy to go to the race location.
Yes.
Thank you. That's giving me such burden, I guess I'll still be okay with it.
Really good admin.
No, it's nice. Any public comment? Okay, we will, in the department head report, starting on the township system. On page 12.
That's cool. Township assistants in July, not June. Becky went to the AEF Supply It Forward event. She sat there all day, which was great. Thank you, Becky. And passed out information about our clothing vouchers. And so within the week, we had pledged $2,500 in clothing vouchers, and it's $150 a kid. So it's a lot of kids there. And we've had a few more come in, so it's great. And then we won't see that come in for a few months because Burlington is always behind on the billing. So.
One question I have, is there any concern that we're almost to budget already with housing?
Yes.
It's only July.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're gonna end up doing $67,000 in housing. Yeah, that's where I'm forecasting us. So when we have the physicians, the healthcare, some of those other line items that we don't typically dip into, I believe that we'll be able to cover most of it, but if the trend continues, we may be looking at a $2,000 gap, which we can either take from the grants, or we can go into an additional appropriation.
Okay.
So for next year, we're looking at least $65,000 on that line item.
So you're already keeping an eye on it.
Of course you are.
Any thoughts as to why?
Rent is getting more expensive. We haven't done a rental voucher for under $1,000 this year, except just one person with their whole rent paid. Some of the COVID programs have ended. Utility bills are going higher. And I was talking to Ryan about this. So the energy assistance program shuts off from May to October, but it gets really, really hot here. So I think Becky and I have trouble leaving a kid in an apartment that doesn't have air conditioning. Despite the fact that I know my parents didn't have air conditioning as kids, they were not. But our building not built quite the same way they used to be, so there's not a ventilation. So I know we're just trying really hard to be conscious of that when there's kids in the home. So that's part of the utility costs as well.
No questions. Okay, next up we have human resources.
So I have the human resources report for you this month. Ashley's homesick today, so she's not able to be here with us. Obviously, we can flip through and look at the report. She's got several pages of the different graphs for us available. If you have any questions about any of that, of course, let me know. We will get those answered for you. Outside of that, I don't think we had anything unexpected as that went through HR this month for us. So.
Okay, next up we have parks.
Right, as you can tell from our report, Explorer Extended Care has been our main focus. In the Parks Department, our programming staff was able to go to the Supply It Forward Drive to talk about our scholarship program for Explorer Extended Care. They also did a school supply giveaway bingo at the Explore Extended Care pool party that we threw. And these numbers right here, they jumped so high. This is substantially larger than the Y had last year. So right now we're just really trying to keep up with staffing numbers, consistently hiring. You may have seen on Facebook, we are advertising everywhere you could think of, and even some places we've never thought of before. We're even reaching out to some of our friends to see if they can spread the word for us. Our issue internally is that we have some kids on the waiting list, and we don't want to have any kids on the waiting list. So that's why we'll continue to hire, continue to find the best staff. But you can see our numbers are looking really good for this program. We're really happy about these numbers. And from what we can tell, the school is pretty happy with it as well. Then we are wrapping up our aquatics and also our nature program. We are starting our homeschool group again. And so we have actually added an adaptive homeschool group as well. So that way we can reach out to those with special needs. And then kind of just going over, closing out the aquatic center, wrapping up some of our programs. And you can see on the last page, the revenue report. I forgot to send the entire report separately, so I do have that on the table for you. But Britt, if you can scroll down to the last page, you can see that we have already hit our general part goal. Our MAP goal, I do not think we'll completely hit that MAP goal just because of the weather that we've had and the cold, the rain, everything like that. We just can't catch a break with the weather. So a lot of the other park directors I've talked to that have aquatics facilities, they've seen the same hit as we have. But you can see we are at 90% for our overall goal. And if my numbers are correct, they're not final numbers, but we will reach that goal within this month for the entire year.
Do we have an official date when the pool will be closed?
So right now it's Labor Day weekend. We would like to keep it open, and we have a calendar that we send out there, and we see posts of people saying, what a shame, we wish they would stay open. They're just not coming.
Right.
So we just don't see the point of opening the pool if people aren't coming. We have the staff, people just aren't coming. So we just don't see again, we want to make sure we're being fiscally responsible, and if we aren't seeing the people there, then we're not going to open it. But we see those big numbers on the weekends, and that's why we're sticking with the weekends.
When you conclude, which will be when you start doing your September reports, will you do a comparison to last year with the income and expenses like you did for us, so we can kind of look at how the overall operations are, not just the revenues, but
What do you mean? Like expense and revenue?
yeah, income and expense.
Yeah, we'll
I
do
think
that.
last year with Britt's help, you put together a P&L for us, so I'd
Yes.
like to see the same thing again.
Okay, yeah, we'll make sure that we do that. We'll work with Britt on that. We had some expenses that we didn't expect, like the pump house when it froze, but we were able to get that money back from insurance. So we'll show that on there as well, but we'll work with Britt to get you those final numbers.
That's fine.
Same with the camps too. We plan on doing that. Stephanie's kind of been diving into the numbers for camp and kind of seeing what we really made off of each individual camp, making sure everything is worth it to us. And we're pretty happy with the numbers that we have and the expenses that we have, but I'll make sure that we share all that stuff with you too.
Good, appreciate that.
And then kind of from the after school program, if you will, I know you call it a program, but staffing wise, how close are you?
We need 3 people,
Okay.
but I've told staff if we need 3 people, then we need 8 people.
Right.
So that'll just be one that we're continuing to hire and probably continuing to lose people for, because we opened and we lost. We only need 1 person and then we lost 3 people. So then we were back to we need 4 people, now we need 3 people. So it just kind of fluctuates like that. And you'll see that in Ashley's report, but we'll make sure that we tell you what our staffing looks like too. We'll add that to the youth services report.
And then getting the wait list, is there kind of an agreement with the school? Is there an obligation to like, hey, we want to have a wait list of 0 or
There isn't.
%?
There isn't, but internally
Oh,
our goal.
yeah.
But the school, no, they didn't have that in their contract or anything. That's just something we want to be able to provide it to everybody. Because we still are the cheapest option.
Okay, good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fire.
gonna go old school. I'm not training computer. I just brought paper. As we look through the report, first paragraph, we've been working along with the rest of the township on RFPs concerning engineering and architecture. As part of our capital improvement plan that was presented last month. We're looking to move forward with that. And I think as of this month, we've started to settle on a group we'd like to use. And we're moving forward with education as the funding. That's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. Also, as we move in, wasn't reported today, but we did have a civilian medic resign. Somewhat expected resignation, but that's over and done with. And we've moved forward with the hiring process, which you've seen show up online. So if you have any questions of that, that's what that was. Moving in number 3, we've had multiple people, as you're going to look at in future charts here in just a moment. Multiple people have moved through Instructor 1 and Officer 1. We had about 6 to 10 people go through Instructor 1 class, and then 10 plus or minus go through Officer 1 class. What that means for us is a bigger pool of people for backup officers to start filling roles, have rigs shut down less when it comes to Engine 144, and some cut into some of the overtime needs we've had. So that's going to help with that. Moving into number 4 here, we currently plan to do 1 or 2 more promotion processes. With that said, we just did a recent lieutenant's process and promoted 2, still have 3 people on the list. But we plan to do another chauffeur process coming up, and if the budget's approved, also a captain's process based on the firehouse needs and having house captains to manage the things there, so we can. It adds a layer of management, but their job is still the function on the rig, just as a lieutenant would, but they take on the additional responsibilities and needs of each house. It just keeps things cleaner whenever they're making their reports, and we don't have reports coming from 3 or 4 people within a house. It's coming from only 1. Chief Porter's been actively navigating the emergency responses. We've had an influx of vehicle issues. We've been borrowing the Plainfield ladder, the Brownsburg ladder. You've seen those. We've been in and out of some engines. We have all of the vehicles ordered. They keep getting pushed back. With that said, we're starting to invest into Engine 142 and fixing some issues it's had with the steering from the initial purchase of it. We're going to go ahead and invest some money in there to try to bring that one along a little further, because that engine delivery has been pushed back to about the 3rd quarter of 24. Does that sound about right? That was before it had been pushed out further. It was supposed to be coming sooner. Now they're settling on the 3rd quarter of next year. I thought that was good news. Not good news from our standpoint. Chief Porter's still pushing with the manufacturers there to get ladder 4 and Engine 142 here sooner, because we're having a lot of maintenance issues and things that Engine 142 could help with for sure. But until then, we're going to invest a little bit of money in it and hopefully make it better than it currently sits. Chief Phipps and Director Cron, they've secured lighting packages for some vehicles that we've bought, staff vehicles, and they've been turned around much more efficiently and much quicker than neighboring departments. Trustee Miller can probably vouch for that. Anyway, with that said, that just comes to the forethought and planning. That's what we're trying to demonstrate for this board, demonstrate to our employees here that we're serving the public, and it's about getting things done efficiently and doing the right things and having a plan for succession planning, a plan for vehicle replacement, a plan for outfitting vehicles as they're delivered and getting them on the street and serving the community as quickly as possible. As you move forward into our charts, you'll see the July run total, 733 runs. B Shift, who is present here today, is holding down the fort with 261 of those 733 runs. The other shifts are 237 and 235 respectively. Staffing, mutual aid, staffing, and apparatus out of service. You look at our overtime hours at 1,032. I did not write last month's down, but it was just a couple weeks ago. That 1,032 hours is significantly less than what's happened in the last months. I don't have an answer to you as to why. I'd like to say it's because of our initiatives, but I can't point to that because those initiatives are still in progress. However, with people stepping up, having new backup chauffeurs, new backup officers, you'll see that Engine 144 had 0 hours out of service. DC was only out of service 36 hours, where one of our administrative chiefs or overtime covered it. And Engine 144 was EMS only for only 108 hours. All of those, if you look back on all the reports, are significantly less. Again, I would like to say it's because of our initiatives, but I can't definitively say that right now. Going into overall runs, Total incidents by shift for the year, we're currently 288 runs over where we were at last year with 4,585 runs. We are projecting to be well over 8,000 this year, 8,300. And again, B shift is holding down the fort with 1,572 runs of that share. Then C shift at 1,522, and A shift at 1,491. The next group in fire inspection, I told you those guys keep me on my toes. They brought in $8,700 in plan review fees. To date, they brought in $48,455. We're probably going to see them push the $90,000 mark, which more than justifies the inspector we want to bring on next year as part of the budget. How that money fits in, I'm not smart enough to tell you that yet, but I'll figure out how that works from the revenues we bring in. And I'm sure Britt and Jeff Peters can help me figure out that part of the puzzle. But again, we're justifying the person needed. And whenever we bring them in with plan reviews and inspections, they're going to be much more efficient. And again, we're not growing that division. That division already had a fire marshal, public educator, and 2 inspectors back in 2005. We're just getting back to where we were, and we know what Avon looks like versus 2005. But again, they continue to do good work, and they in turn get rewarded for that. They've asked for a lot of things to do their job, a lot of tools. The second point on their fire investigation division is the Matterport camera that was purchased. They can take 3D photos to assist in documenting fire investigating scenes. They know how to read a fire. They got to use it weeks after obtaining the device. If you go to the next page, that is what that looks like. So that is a 3D rendering. And we can go through that room by room, just like you would take a tour of a hotel. On your paper, it probably doesn't look as good as maybe on the screen, but it goes in detail and rebuilds that house in a 3D model. And we can go through each door, up to each window. They can look for more things that they may have overlooked while they were on scene, and they can go back and look at it in detail. Again, this was the middle of the night, only being lit by flashlights, and the details and the high resolution found within these images. It even goes outside the windows. That's some of the fragments you'll see there where the arrow's at. So it's picking up things out in the yard. But again, a valuable piece of equipment. Levi and Tom have used that exhaustingly. They also are still going through interviews with the suspect in that fire. But again, they can go back and find clues and things they overlooked. They can call police and go back and look at that again and make sure they collect the proper evidence. So again, not just for the sake of having tools, but tools that can be used for the service to the public. So I really appreciate that. I asked Levi to provide that for us. Moving into the charts that are on the next page. Again, this is our social media. It's not a great reflection of where we're going to be, but it's a reflection of where we can be. So you'll see the spikes. Again, Instagram, we end up with 18 new followers. Well, we just got the password to that. You see where it fell off and it popped up. The usage of the impressions to the public, only about 800. Back when we were using it in January, when Julia was here, we were about 1,800 impressions. We're back up to that. We just got the password back from that one. Facebook's kind of holding steady at 60,000 or more impressions. We've generated some good traffic, but that's just a handoff between myself and Courtney. We're still getting new followers with the news we're putting out, the information. Twitter's new to us all. It hasn't been used in the past very well. What I would like to do in the vision we have is use Facebook for information and basically your everyday posts. Twitter is going to be more graphic and photographic intense, maybe scenes and things like that. And then Twitter information for media, putting things out with runs and traffic blockages based on a run, so on and so forth. But as we establish that vision, these charts will even out and serve their own purpose. At this point, do you guys have any questions for me?
One question I have is the mutual aid given. Can we start to get mutual aid received? I always like to compare those every month. Is that a stat that we can get? We used to have it.
So the computer program, when we changed in our collection program, it's no longer really feasible, short of running every piece of apparatus and the report generated from that. It's either in our district or it's out of our district, and that's how we generate the runs mutually given is by the times that we are leaving the district.
Got it. Okay.
This time, you were talking about Jason and Bob. So Chief Porter and Chief Phipps, bringing them in and having everybody in the white shirts aside from wanting us to do that every time, right? What I want you guys to understand as a board is they've been a great team to have. They've held me accountable. I've held them accountable, and now we get this back and forth. They keeps each other on their toes to the point where, arguments turn into solutions. And I use the term argument loosely. They're not angry arguments, but we have our debates, and we have the debates that are appropriate for us to make sure. Whenever I came in and swore in, I said we want to serve the people to serve the people. It's us trying to make sure we come up with the right answers to the right things based on the data and based on the obligation to the board with regards to overtime and purchases and the budgets. What do we need to do to make sure that our people can put the best product on the street? And these two have helped hold me accountable. And I want the three of you to know that if you ever have questions about our budget, about what we're doing, you don't have to go through anybody. I'm always going to communicate to the township, any conversations we have. There's not going to be any behind the scenes, but reach directly out to us. And if you reach out to me or you reach out to one of them, you're going to get the same answer. Whether you find somebody in the street, you see them at the grocery store or whatever, if you have a question, ask it. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I really appreciate what they brought to the table. In the beginning, I've known Chief Phipps for a while from a whole different side of the fence and a different perspective. I didn't know Chief Porter very well. And we got to know each other upon my arrival here. So with that said, I really appreciate what you guys have all done, but I appreciate the team we've been able to build in the admin. So anytime you have a question when it comes to our area or our department, come and ask us. Don't make assumptions, or you don't have to go through anybody. I think that's fair to say, and we'll give you the answers, and we'll make sure that we communicate that we've got a discussion. So there'll be full disclosure in our operation from this point forward, and as there has been in the past. But I want to continue that, and I want you guys to have that trust moving forward. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that said, we did move over to the town of Avon. We went and had a meeting with Ryan Cannon. Whenever we talked to him, I personally voiced the displeasure of some of the comments that come from the town council regarding fire. I appreciate you guys going to have in your meetings. But at times we hear things too, and some of it I told him I didn't appreciate, but 90% of our conversation was very positive. We just reached out to them to see what they expected, what kind of preconceived notions they had, and what tools they had available to help us put a better picture together for service, because we're Washington Township Avon Fire. And with that said, we have an obligation to not only serve the township, but everybody within it, which includes that town. And they have offered up to us some of the GIS mapping and some of their other services based on some new employees they had. And I think we're going to have a good relationship moving forward. They invited us to some of their workshops for education of the board, because he thinks a lot of comments that get made is based on ignorance of what we're doing. So just so you guys know, and I've talked to Trustee Miller about it, we may go to one of those meetings, and we'll let you know ahead of time. We'll let everybody know if we do go, so that if you want to attend, then you guys can attend as well. But that's our goal moving forward. I told them outside of the politics of all the conversations that have happened with all of the consolidation and so forth, that doesn't concern us. It's about service to the community and service of our people. And if they have tools available, we'd like to use those. Just like if we have things available to them with PD, we play nice with PD, and Chief Nugent's been instrumental in a lot of things we do with Project Lifesaver and inviting us out to Night Out. Those are huge events. We want to make sure that they understand that with public safety, we're all together. Chief Stoops, Chief Nugent, and their staff's been great. And again, we all interact at different levels, and just want you guys to understand that as well. So we're starting to reach out a little bit. We need to be out in our firehouses a little bit more. We need to be out in public a little bit, do a little better job of that. But with the budgets and getting everything together, we've kind of been rebranding inside the office. So we'll have your report. Promise. Thank you.
Okay, trustee report.
In regards to what the fire chief was just talking about in communications, obviously I talk with fire chief and his staff on a daily basis, after hours, weekends. We talk regularly. You all only have the opportunity to really meet with them at these meetings here And so that's why I want to talk about, we want to be as open and as transparent with you, the board, so you have a better understanding. So that way, when we're in these meetings, when we're out talking to people in the public, we're all speaking the same language. And so that is important to us. Definitely a conversation that I've had with the fire chief, because we are trying to build those relationships, especially with Dane being newer into that position as well. So I definitely support that idea. The other part that he talked about was that Matterport camera, and I won't dive too much into it, but if you've ever seen like a virtual walkthrough of a house on a real estate listing, that's what this camera is doing. But imagine that in a house that's been on fire, and that technology is really neat to be able to view. And the picture that we have in the packet today doesn't know justice. I would say if that's something that even remotely interests you, let's get a hold of the chief. Let's set something up. Levi can certainly, have you guys come in sometime to take a look at that. It's really cool how you can, after the fire is over, record all of those images, and the way that software puts it all together. You can literally virtually walk through the house after the fire's occurred and look at and zoom in on things from the floor to the ceiling. As the fire chief mentioned, in some instances, see out the window, see out the doors of the house. So really that technology is a pretty incredible tool for us. And it's definitely going to pay dividends to us in the future as we continue to have fires that we're investigating, or even in the law enforcement world. I can see them definitely being able to use that as well. So just part of those relationships that we are working with the town on, and that technology is pretty neat. I would encourage you to try to come in at some point in time to take a look at that if you get that chance. Moving on to my report. Not a long report, but it's just been 2 weeks since we met last time. So again, Chief Brock made a reference to some of the RFPs that we had out. We are looking at some future projects and making sure that we're prepared for that. So not only going into the budget season for this year, but then what's it going to look like for the next few years? And obviously having Jeff Peters here last month, he was able to kind of touch on some of the future projects and some of the future growth that we might be looking at, and then what that looks like as far as sustainability goes. So again, we are very early in that process of having any of these construction projects going forward, but we are trying to get that foundation set. So when we are ready to move farther along in those projects, then we've done our due diligence, making sure that we've interviewed the companies, we've done looked at the different funding mechanisms that are out there, again, to find that best plan moving forward. Along those lines, we have had some conversations with Brian Bosma, who, as you know, is our bond counsel. So we are working on finalizing both the Station 144 and the MAP bonds. We do still have some items outstanding for both of those projects that we are going to get some additional items paid for using those bond funds. And then after that, we'll be able to close that up and finalize that bond process. And then lastly, in my report, make a reference to the VIVA. So we are in the process, again, working with Bosma, who helped establish the VIVA initially. He's trying to find a firm that's able to help us get those VIVA accounts closed out and any of the funds dispersed. If we're able to do that, there is a lot of opportunities for different tax implications. And so we have to make sure that we are working through this system the right way, which, as we've talked previously, is difficult to do because there's not many firms out there where people are willing to want to sit down and talk about VIVAs, because it is very complicated. And so again, we are trying to make sure we are doing right by the employees, making sure that it is done the right way. I don't want anybody having to have the burden of any unnecessary tax liabilities if we can avoid that. So again, just trying to do our due diligence to make sure that we are working through that process the appropriate way.
I think just one quick comment. I'll just applaud you guys for reaching out to the town and sitting down with them and as well. I think that's something that three of us have always been in favor of, is collaboration. So I applaud you and we can keep up with it.
Okay, next up, old business. Washington Township training. Sorry, I was going to take a drink.
No, that's why I know I've got some more talking ahead of me. So,
You got a couple now in here.
yep. So, have had the opportunity to meet with senior services about the Washington Township Transportation Program. As we talked at the last meeting, we were unsure on the direction that we were going to go moving forward with that project, knowing that we have a great deal of questions or concerns about the sustainability of that project moving forward. Talking with Marina, they do want to continue with the trial of that program as we originally discussed. And so we have talked about that. Actually, Shane and I had an opportunity to meet with Marina to discuss that in greater detail moving forward, what that's going to look like. That brings us back to a question that I had previously that I've spoken with each of the board members individually about in the past, was my concern about operating that program and us owning a vehicle but not providing the driver for that program. So the question, the concern that I still have in regards to that, we did reach out to our insurance company to discuss that. Andy Brown is our rep. He said I was allowed to use his the phrase that he likes to use, and the fact that as far as risk management goes, the largest liability is in that front left seat. So the largest liability that we're facing is whoever's behind that steering wheel. And so he said, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. We can own the vehicle and we can have somebody who is not employed by the township operate and drive that vehicle. Is it murky? Yeah, a little bit. It is still. So he definitely agrees that there is some concern there. He says we can make it happen if that's the route that we choose to go. But there is some concerns that he shares with me in regards to what that looks like. So at this point in time, we do have the money that was in this year's budget to operate the program, so we can move forward with the transportation program. Any money that is left in this year's budget, we can of course encumber into next year to continue to operate that. And then how far it goes beyond that is a discussion that we're going to have at a later date to find out what that looks like. Once we know, I would hope that, into early next year, we're going to have a better idea on a month-to-month kind of a basis what this program is going to cost us moving forward, and that's going to allow us a better opportunity to make a more informed decision. Where we go with the who's owning that vehicle, that's where I want to loop you back into this conversation to share any opinions or thoughts that you all might have. Talking with Marina again, she's got very strict rules on vehicles that she can or can't own as far as the LINK program is concerned. But she also mentioned that it's still possible that if they were to obtain the vehicle through a donation from the township, that there were other ways that she would be able to work that vehicle in and still be able to operate that moving forward for us. Shane, was there anything else from that meeting that?
Yeah, I mean, the link requirement, the funding requirement requires them to buy a new vehicle. It can't be a new vehicle. It has to be pretty much never owned before is kind of what it's down to.
Okay, so they would have an issue with it even accepting that as this vehicle as a gift or as a donation?
For the link program, but if this continued in some fashion, this is the way I'm understanding this, so drop that. They would have to, it could be part of their fleet, but it couldn't be used for programs that are funded by the link.
Okay,
so it's the funding source and how they utilize it.
which this really wouldn't be anyway. And I say that with a question mark. I think
Initially, no.
I mean, yeah, for at least for the first 2 years. Okay.
And then I think at that point they could, if they had it, they could utilize it if another entity wanted to fund in some way. It's just where the funding source comes from is kind
That's
of my
the
understanding.
impression that I had as well.
She can look more into it, but let's say they wanted I don't know, if they already have a program with, let's say, a healthcare entity, and that healthcare entity needed more coverage, they could partner with them for additional coverage. And not, it's their vehicle, they work it out in that fashion.
So what are our options? Keeping the vehicle and owning it as the township, right? And providing some sort of interesting insurance to ensure that the driver is covered, or donating it to them now, or donating it to them in 2 years. What are our options?
I think all of those are options right now.
Are there more options than those three?
Well, yeah, if you're just talking vehicle related, yes.
Yes, there are more options.
No, if you're talking vehicle related only, like a transfer of ownership or ownership of the vehicle, then those kind of are the three options.
So is that what you're wanting feedback on?
That's what I would like to talk about just moving forward. If we are going to continue with this trial program, which it sounds like we are, how does that look operationally? And we've ironed out the details of the funding. Essentially, they operate the vehicle. We would get billed on a quarterly basis for the driver, for any fuel, for any of the miscellaneous expenses. But as it sits right now today, we own the vehicle, we insure the vehicle. What that looks like moving forward is the reason for bringing this up to the board, because I want to have that discussion so we can work those details out to figure out what is going to be best for us for this program.
I would definitely like to hear your feedback, for both of you. I always would like to protect ourselves from any potential liability. That's always my number one
Which was my concern as well.
I always try to think 5 steps ahead. If this happens, so this could happen. So I would lean towards donating it. Right? We're not going to keep it. This program will never be ours.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, we're not in the transportation business.
Right. So to me, then we don't need to own this vehicle. It was purchased for the specific project. So I don't see why we would hold on to it for 2 years, open ourselves up to potential liability. I don't know. I would donate it now.
That's definitely the recommendation that I would give as well. Is right following suit with exactly what you said there. I would be comfortable making that donation to senior services now. And then that way they operate and run this program from top to bottom. And then we are simply the funding mechanism to get through the trial program and then further discussions down the road moving forward.
Is there a difference between donating and then selling it to them for $1? I don't know
I would want to.
You guys figure out the framework that you feel good about, and we'll figure out how we
yeah,
fit.
okay.
That was gonna be my question.
I don't know tax implications or any of that.
Well, neither one of you are a taxed body, so that's not the issue. It would be for you. Kind of the regulatory issue of making sure that we started out under one pretense that we were going to do this as an ongoing program, and it sort of ended up being they got banned. That's fine, but we need to just make sure that resolution has the right citations to the right code pieces. And I think the donation or transfer of equipment, which way we should look at it, to a nonprofit is probably acceptable. That happen real often. Anytime that there is a transfer or a sale of public equipment to the public, we have to go through all the RFP rigmarole, so no one feels like there's an insider deal. But when we do a transfer intergovernmentally, whatever terms you want to find, no one cares. You just have to adopt the same resolution. Well, this is not a governmental entity. This is an Indiana not-for-profit with 501c3 blessings from the Internal Revenue Service. So it's neither of each. You figure out what you want to do, and I'll make it fly.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of donating. I think that seems to be the cleanest for us as a township. then we're just talking about operating costs for the next 2 years. And then make a decision on what will happen after that.
Yeah, I'm okay with donating it. I think it's unfortunate that we have to go that way because two entities in a partnership that would both be potential targets for whatever you want to call it, legal action. But it would probably make it a little bit less. One entity a little bit less. They'll still probably try to sue us anyway.
I sit here and was thinking exactly
Cows on the
that.
side of it.
What's a plaintiff's attorney, what's a PI attorney going to do? And if they look at drivers this entity with this insurance and titled owner is this entity with this insurance, 2 bites are better than 1 bite. And that's all they're going to do. They don't care who was more or less responsible. They're looking for the greatest opportunity to try to get some type of recovery and bring people in a mediation or a trial to come up with some sort of insurance settlement. So if you can narrow that and Shane, we were coping with these issues when we were first looking at the contract.
Right.
How do we get the indemnity taken care of? So,
yeah.
All right. Well,
Did you do your answer?
I'm sorry.
Did you do your answer?
Yeah, absolutely. I will continue those discussions with Marina to make sure that we've got all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. Jeff, I'll be reaching out to you we'll get some verbiage put down on.
we probably need to come up with, probably need to pitch it in terms of the community service contract, and that we're still gonna, there's still a need. There's still people that are a sensitive population that transport. We want them to work. We want them to get to work, and there are code sections that support township stepping into that. So I think we need to kind of repitch it through that, and then I think that's probably the avenue that we can make it go.
Because you talked with Marina, the non-linked vehicle or any vehicles, so I don't know if that would include something that came from HRH or from us, whatever, can still be used. Their scheduling software to get the riders where they need to be. That's not an issue, correct?
Yeah,
I
believe
mean, they don't have to say, well, we can only schedule link with this software because that's all they allow us to do.
The township transportation has a separate process for scheduling rides for that. It's got its own unique phone number, and I believe we've got the online submission for that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It is my impression of it from the conversations that we've had is this Washington Township Transportation Program is completely separated from the Link Hendricks County Transportation Service.
Okay. But to your question, kind of on the operations piece of it, could they use it? Could they use their operation?
I guess what I'm at.
Yeah, I think they can figure that out.
Yeah, I'm asking, is that something that's gonna inhibit the utilization of that piece of equipment,
Yeah, I think that it's, when we say the decision is to kind of donate it, that's for them to kind of figure out at that point. The flip side of that is, I guess, and help me out with this, because let's say we go to the 2-year trial, we say, hey, we don't want to continue after that. They now have a vehicle that we use funds for that they then might say, hey, we're just going to sell it. They take the proceeds from that sale.
I think you ought to have some internal discussion about that as to we're predicting we're in kind of open territory. Nobody's quite sure how the process is going to work and how they're going to be able to utilize it. And I think it's fair for there to be some sort of understanding at the end of it. It's like, thanks for getting us started. We've been able to transport X number of people that couldn't otherwise get to work, and it might be great, it might be awesome, might be everything that everybody was trying to fill that gap. They might come back and go, yeah, we've used it here and there, and for our own transport we use it, but we're really not sure how we're going to deploy it. We sell it and put it towards something. You might say, well, you go to Mac, we'll sell it. Yeah, you can have that clawback in there if you want it, and I'd probably advise you to do that because you just,
That would make me feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, that's what I.
very rarely do we ever get to, we're confronting what's right in front of us. Very rarely do we get to
Right.
forecast on an unknown project what's going to happen in 2 years.
Yeah, that's a piece to discuss as well.
Have you talked, in addition to the quarterly billing for operating expenses, have you asked Marina for utilization and any kind of usage reports, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
As part of that.
That's something we
they
talked
should-
about as well.
Quarterly,
They should provide.
submit a bill and a report.
Yeah.
All right, that gives me what I need to move forward with that. Thank you.
Next up, pedestrian crossing.
All right, this one has been a long time coming, so I'm happy to report that I do have quotes from 2 different companies to complete the work that we need for the Murphy Aquatic Park pedestrian crossing. I do want to give a shout out, a kudos to Steve over at Town Hall, meeting with him, meeting with Ryan Cannon. They agreed that, hey, we want to help find vendors who are willing to do this project, because that was the biggest struggle that we had working with some of the other companies we had relationships with. Obviously, we've talked about it in public meetings previously, finding the vendors that were willing to do the work at a cost that we felt was fair, was the struggle we had. We had plenty of vendors that were willing to throw out outrageous numbers to us, but obviously we weren't comfortable with any of those. Steve was able to work with some of the other contractors that the town does business with, and was able to land these 2 quotes for us. So we do have that. We're looking at essentially $53,000 combined, roughly, is the cost that it's going to take to complete this project for us. We do have that money. When I made a reference to the Murphy Aquatic Park bonds earlier, this was one of the items that I was directly referring to. We do have money available in the bond to pay for that. And at the completion of this, I have already confirmed through the town manager, there's no other anticipated or hidden costs that they can think of that would prevent us from getting the permanent C of O for Murphy Aquatic Park once this project is completed. So at this point in time, the options we have in front of us are, I can give the go-ahead, have both of these contractors get this on their calendar, scheduled to get this work done. I will continue communicating with Steve Moore at the town to make sure that I would like to have him as involved as he's willing to be, because obviously we want to make sure that the installation is done per the spec that the town is wanting. So we're not dealing with having to tear anything out or go through any of this anymore in the future. The other option that the town manager has pitched over to me is essentially we would have, I would assuming, Jeff, an MOU would probably be the route we would have to go, but essentially we would write a check to the town with the understanding that that money is going to be used. Essentially, they're going to take the project on for us, and they would oversee it like they would any other construction project within the town. I would probably advocate for that simply because, one, I don't know anything about road construction. 2, I don't like being the middleman on projects like this. This is what Steve does on a very regular basis. If the town is willing to accept that as an option for us, I would be perfectly comfortable with having an agreement with them where we can provide them the funds quoted on these 2 documents in front of me, and then they use those funds in turn to complete that crosswalk project. The end result is we still get that certificate of occupancy for Murphy Aquatic Park, and we can finally close the book on that project. Any thoughts or recommendations from the board? I would love to hear them.
I think if we go kind of the MOU path, provided it doesn't delay or cause a, maybe that's it.
Set up is not to exceed your 53, but when the check is requested, that actual invoices come with the check request, because it's not up to 53, maybe it comes in at 49.
Right.
I doubt that, but that you just say, this is it, 53 is, you presented that, and that's what we're doing, and I don't know how they could then have any complaint about the finish on it if their man's
Right.
being foreman.
That's why I think that's a good point. Again, as long as it doesn't cause us to, those quotes go beyond the timeline or something like that. Not that I want to blame on getting caught in legal, but it's an easy one to. It's an easy one to blame. It's an easy target.
Not on your side.
No, I'm not saying that. I just don't want it to be something where if they agree to that, yes, you provide invoices, we cut the check, it's all done. Not to exceed up to however we word it. It's fine.
With all of that criteria, I couldn't agree more, just because they're the ones that clearly had an issue in the first place, even though we felt that we were building it based on their specs. So all of this has obviously been a surprise, as we've gone along the process. So if Steve is willing to take that on, please, that way it's done the way they want it.
Yeah, and that's what I would like again as well is, make sure that we do it the right way, so that way we can finalize this project, move forward. And again, I certainly appreciate his willingness to
Absolutely.
want to help us out to get that finalized.
And for Ryan allowing that as well.
Absolutely.
I likewise agree.
All right. Well, again, that gives me what I need to have some conversations and move forward with that. So.
Good deal. Hopefully that gets done. When do those quotes expire? Are they 60 days, 30 days?
The signal construction quote we've had longer because that one came in quite a bit earlier. So I need to, I'll get back with them. I'll reach out to the town, Steve, sooner than later to make sure that they know that, we like these numbers. These numbers are acceptable. Let's move forward with this.
Okay. Yeah, because 90-day quotes or stuff like that don't exist much in construction anymore.
Yeah, I know we're pushing the timeline for that signal, especially. So I do want to make sure that we jump on that sooner than later.
Okay. So Communities of Excellence Framework, I think did you send that out?
Yes.
Send that out to everybody. So I guess I wanted to be somewhat of a discussion from board standpoint, from leadership standpoint. Is this something, because what it will do is it will take us kind of moving forward to key entities within Avon, Washington Township. So the big ones are town and school to say, hey, we want to move forward what really defines a community of excellence, of everything from collaboration to how we operationalize certain things, or speed tables and signals and that kind of stuff, and how we operate moving forward. I know the framework, I understand the framework, but I think it's just it wants to be something that, hey, we think it's a good idea, we don't think it's a good idea, just to start this conversation. If both those entities say we're not interested in that, then it kind of dies at that point. But I think it's something we present to them. I think the Communities of Excellence group would even come out and present some of that as to why it's a good idea and why they think it helps make community better.
For those here that haven't read the paperwork, can you kind of give a layman version?
Yeah, so it's basically a framework. I hate to define something what it is. There's a framework on how communities who are high performing work together, how they collaborate, from everything from leadership structure to strategies to operational pieces of, how do you track metrics? What metrics do you track? What shows that your community is a great community? Short of a lot of people go, oh, hey, we're the healthiest place to live. Okay, well, that's great, but we're not going to get there unless we all work together in some fashion. So it really provides that, hey, we speak the same way. There's everything around from reorganization, consolidation, whatever word or words you want to use to define that created a situation where I don't think people really understood that. And unless folks can actually work together and understand each other, we're never going to get there anyways. And I think we've tried little things and those haven't gone anywhere. It always comes back to the same kind of argument, if you will. This is a different way to approach that we will collaborate, from everything from rules of engagement on social media to, again, speed tables, and if we're building things and creating things, we don't want to be an obstruction to another. Both have parks departments, can parks departments be better collaborators in things, so that when things happen, we don't say things we shouldn't or do things we shouldn't, and it looks to the community like, man, two of my taxing entities don't have a clue and they hate each other. Yeah, that was very transparent, but I don't think we feel that way, but I think that's the perception out there. I mean, and little things get blown way out of proportion. So I guess it's just what thoughts are out there.
Again, I think I alluded to this a little bit earlier. I mean, we fought like, you know what, to try to make collaboration happen. And as you had said, it didn't go great. And then it really kind of blew out of proportion, and we're really stagnant right now. It just kind of ended after we had that big meeting. So yeah, I have always been all for it. I think it's what's best for the constituents that voted us in. I think it's our duty to figure out how to be more efficient, how to work together, how to collaborate, and not just the low-hanging fruit that we were trying before, but everything all together. So anything that helps move that ball forward, I am all for trying.
And this takes us somewhat out of that. It's like, here's work on these things, don't work on projects, work on how you're going to do things. And then when projects come, you run them through the framework.
Right. And is it a third party that comes in? How does that work?
No, yes and no. The framework is a third party, if you will. It's kind of large. It's a national, it's a government. It's through NIST. It's through, it's very well structured, but we work together as a collaborative team, township, schools, library, everybody who has a collective interest in that. Maybe even the county, and then you put yourself through the framework. They come out and evaluate you. Are you a community of excellence?
Okay.
And they coach you through it because they want you to be successful.
Right.
They want, it's a government initiative, but they want everybody to be more collaborative.
Great.
Whereas I think some look at it and their solution is, well, we'll just eliminate townships and they'll be more collaborative. That doesn't mean everybody will be more collaborative. You just eliminated something that doesn't make people collaborate. So, I made it just transparent for you. Thoughts you guys have from just an operation?
I can say a lot of what you're talking about falls, I think, probably directly in line with the strategic plan that Britt has kind of been leading us through within our own township, talking about the metrics, talking about what we feel as the department heads and the management of the different departments within the township, what we think is important to make sure that we are relaying to not only the board, but to anybody else who is keeping up with our monthly reports and then our annual reports, to make sure that we are providing the information, try to be as transparent, to talk about this is what services we are providing to our community. And it sounds like just the way you're describing it, the information that we've been able to read in the PDFs that you provided is a lot of that same information or that same concept, just at a larger scale, involving multiple entities instead of involving the multiple departments. How that's received outside of the walls of this building, I mean, we don't know until those conversations happen, but
Right, it could be done, but I think we still do what we need to internally. So,
yeah.
Chief Rock, did you have something?
Yeah, things like performance and community resilience. So whenever I look at performance, it has people development. The way we would develop people on the fire side is just different. So if we develop a framework and we put this document out and exist, like I tell our department and everybody in it, we just had this meeting earlier, I don't want to violate policy to uphold policy, if that makes sense. I don't want to have something in place and say this is what we're going to do, then I can't live up to that obligation. So if we define succession planning. My path to succession planning is very unique for this department. There's certifications required by the state, there's certifications required by us, there's certain trainings. It's not going to mirror the township, the parks, the town, the police department. So does it lock us in?
It locks you into what you say you're going to do. So if fire department says this and park says this, those are still elements of succession planning. What in an assessment, if you will, and they come in and you say, this is how we do succession planning, they'll say, Chief Brock, how do you do succession planning? And you'll be like, hopefully, your policy, this is what we do. They'll also go out and ask frontline firefighter, hey, how long have you been here? I've been here 6 months. Have they ever explained succession planning to you? Yeah, well, what is it? And they tell them something completely different. It's like, maybe this isn't true there. And go up and down to the levels of that. Right, there should be some levels that may be a little bit extreme that somebody's going to know succession planning is early on frontline, but they're going to ask the right levels to say, are you really upholding what you say you're upholding from an accountability standpoint? It's a framework. What you put on that frame is your choice. It's just, you will, if you say you'll do it, you got to do it, kind of thing. You got to live by what you say you're going to live by. Sure. And they're not going to, there's key elements, but they're really key elements within any leadership model or succession planning and that kind of thing. As long as those key elements are held, those are what show that reproducibility and been proven time and time again.
Yeah, the thing I see that we do oftentimes in the fire service as a whole is we get very specific, and then a law or something changes, and that specificity bites us because we can't live up to that spec. And we have to be able to evolve. So the more general we are, the better. That's why I'm asking this: how specific does it get? How much does it confine us? Because right now, in our bylaws for our safety board, we can't hire people over 36. State statute was just adopted in July 1st that we can hire up to 40. So now when I go to our board and I want to hire 40-year-olds, I can't unless they want to provide an exception to a rule we have written because we didn't say we would abide by a state statute.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
So that's what I'm asking.
It wouldn't get into that deep. It's just more, what are your hiring rules? Are you following your hiring rules?
More general. So this would be more of 30,000 foot view.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Because reading it's very specific, very drilled down in the documentation of the framework.
Yeah, I mean, parts of it are, it'll be more, are you following good hiring practices? Are you integrating appropriately? Are you doing, it's best practices in that versus the criteria. Because the criteria are set by
Policy.
the job, policy, legislation, that kind of thing, that you can't, unfortunately, control all of them.
That sounds good. Yeah, reading it, it's like.
It should never be that. But let's say probably parks wise, it's a little bit easier, or really even fire, I guess. So okay, what's the process to choose to where to put a new fire station? And you say, well, we want to reduce our run times. Okay, well, and we chose this location for that. What they want to see is, okay, in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, are you actually even looking at what your run times are, that it actually made the difference you should have? And are you learning from that?
So things we've already demonstrated here.
Correct. Yeah. Or, hey, we're going to add these services from a park standpoint. Well, why? Well, here's our mission, and this is how we financially keep it stable. And okay, well then, do you look at the Lilly program or the after-school program in 6 months or a year and say, is it really keeping up with our mission? Is it really financially viable? And is it meeting what our needs are? And if it isn't, what decision do you make that? Which is the hard question. I'm not saying, I know you do that now. That's why we look at all these things and we have these meetings. I think it's the reproducibility in the
I guess that would be my thing is, we're already doing these things, then what does this framework look like? You know, if we're doing this to collaborate with other entities, so we're each building our own frameworks and figuring out how that works together, or we're building one framework together.
So you're building it together, but each has their own way of operations. So let's think of them as circles, and then those circles, concentric circles, start to overlap. That we all work together in a way. This is how we collaborate. They're not going to say you have to adopt and do exactly what this other entity is. No, it's everybody has to follow the framework I just described there. We're going to do something. Is it within our mission? If it's within our mission. Is it financially viable? Do you go back and look at it and repeat that? And at the same time, are you collaborating to the success of the community?
If we're already doing these things, my worry is that we're creating more meetings and more things like when are all these groups gonna meet with each other? You see what I'm saying? How are we gonna set these things up? You know, and at what point, I mean, you know, my worry is we're already doing really good things in the township and we're moving forward and we're getting the things done that we need to get done. My worry is that now these framework people come in that just build frameworks and they're gonna pigeonhole us into one thing.
They are us. We are they. There's nobody coming in to tell us you have to do this. They're simply assessing, are you functioning by what you say you are, and is this truly a community, not just a township of excellence?
Because
So
there's
if we
still
say we as a township are doing great, and we don't need to collaborate, then this entire concept fails. Because it's not collaborating with schools, it's not collaborating with the community. It goes back to exactly what we are.
I have other comments, but not ones I want to make.
No. I mean, I'll give it. I mean, there's tons of examples of where everybody's had opportunities to do things better. It's just a lot of it's communication. Really, what it is.
Just how many times do you let the dog bite you before you realize the dog doesn't want to play with you?
Yeah,
Because in my opinion,
maybe.
I don't see I can speak for myself and the other things that we've done here. We've tried so many things. You guys have tried so many things. Everyone has tried so many things. I just don't want us to get into another position where we're putting so much effort into something to sit it on a shelf somewhere.
Where this is different, and it's not one entity telling the other entity that I think this is what we should focus on. This is what successful communities have done. Do this. If people don't want to come to the table, that's fine. We've tried our best. I guess I'm not necessarily giving up on that, if you will, right or wrong. But it hopefully teaches everybody. And maybe someone, as they learn this, they realize there's other opportunities. I mean, there's other opportunities for us to get better. We're not perfect. We're far from that.
And I don't mind working on us.
Yeah. But it redefines the us as it's the community, not just Washington Township. So.
Is this something that's being driven by kind of you or us as a township? Where did you find this?
I learned about through other things that I do, and it's like this is a movement that they're making to really focus on communities and lift up communities because they see this as a problem. It started the whole framework of excellence and stuff started long ago when we as a country weren't manufacturing with a whole lot of excellence, so they tried to put criteria and a framework around that. Now it's like, okay, it needs to move beyond just manufacturing and businesses to how do communities get better? Because they're impacting so many things. And so many communities struggle with all the stuff we're describing. This is not unique to Avon, Washington Township. It's not, unfortunately. It probably happens in every community in Indiana, quite frankly, right now.
What you provided us with was a lot of the questions to ask, you know, how you self-assess your community to help sell that, to help say, yes, this is a good achievable goal. Is there some narratives that talk about some communities where this is succeeded?
Oh yeah.
And do that, because that
maybe
you can say,
that's-
hey, we can do that. That might make it a little more relatable, I guess, maybe.
And maybe that's the piece to discuss is kind of have a loose discussion with a couple of the entities, saying, hey, would you be interested in hearing this? And then have them present something. Because otherwise, if I sit up there and present it, it's going to look like it's all township driven, and that will not be successful either. But I think have them present, and if people are like, yeah, we don't need that, we're awesome, we got our own thing going on, then it doesn't make sense pushing that rock up there. I don't want you to get crushed by it. So
That was gonna be my question, is if someone could come and present
yeah, absolutely.
to
I just
all
want
entities.
my whole thing before I went down that is that concept, presenting it again, school, library, they may even say, hey, you need to include A, B, and C as well.
Sure.
And I'm not disagreeing with what Laura is saying, is that we have tried to go down this uphill battle so many times. And at what point have we exhausted ourselves and our resources? But I'm with you, it's so important, it's hard to give up on.
I think the end result is what we've got to not lose sight of. And it's important enough to try again, and maybe with a little different slant. And this may be that approach. So I would like to see us at least extend a little more effort and try to assess the interest from the school, the library.
I'd like to hear out this entity. I'd like to hear them out. I'd like to hear case studies.
Yep.
I'd love for somebody from a community that's done it to come and speak.
So let me reach out to them and then kind of follow up the next meeting, if that's fair.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. New business, Avon Education Foundation program update.
So last week when I was putting this agenda together, I had a conversation with some individuals from AEF. They were going to provide me with a report on their event that they just hosted. Did not receive that information, so I don't have anything as far as the update. I'll continue to work to try to get that. Just a follow up from the community service agreement that we provided for them this year. I just want to loop back around to that way you all have a little more information in regards to the end result of what that provided. Once I get that information, I'll get that back over to you.
And then next two up, we have policy updates, drug and alcohol screening,
Yes.
and then vehicle usage.
So again, Ashley is not here today, so I'll be covering both of these. The drug and alcohol-free workplace policy is in your packet. We were able to provide a red line copy of that. If you work past the clean copy, you'll see the red line copy. If you've had an opportunity to review that, you can see the changes that were made.
Silly, but can we spell alcohol correctly?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, God, I didn't see that.
We're drunk.
Yep, we'll definitely work on the spelling error.
I just read right past that.
Funny of all of
That is
the,
not right.
Wow.
all of the,
I am confident.
all of the different red lines that are available there in the red line copy, and you missed the red line that was probably underneath the misspelled word. So we can certainly make that adjustment before adopting this new policy. Any other questions or egregious spelling errors that we have in our new policy?
No.
You just need to approve that.
And
The minor adjustments.
this comes, of course, at the recommendation of the insurance company. They want to make sure that, of course, we are enforcing and we have the policies written. So that's where this comes from, of course.
I move we adopt the new drug and alcohol screening policy.
I will second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Okay, next up is vehicle usage and driving record.
Again, it comes at the recommendation of the insurance company. This is replacing the previous use of equipment policy. So you had an opportunity to review that.
I do have one question, in the second paragraph, it says any exception, and it's in the original also this way, so I don't know if it's worded that way or if I'm just reading it incorrectly. But any exception to this rule must be made in writing by the trustee or to the trustee.
I would imagine that should be to the trustee.
That would have been, I'm guessing that way, but,
Unless-
because I don't think you want to be writing out all the exceptions.
Yeah, unless previously, and I don't know if, Britt, or if you have any knowledge on, was there any previous documentation that the trustee generated as far as the personal use, or is this just written request to the trustee would be my assumption on what that's supposed to look like?
The only thing that even triggers would be that when we have ride-alongs, we have to, we only have members of the public ride-along, if there's something about exceptions in your policy, right?
We have a waiver form we have to fill out, and push a lot of that.
They're not able to drive it.
You're just riding in the vehicle.
Are you sure? My 6-year-old is so smart.
And this seems more on personal use.
Yes.
I would say you want to keep it as by, and that, I mean, you're the administrator of the assets of the township, so ask or write or whatever, if you're gonna give a dispensation, I think you're gonna have to write and say, yes, you can use this, I don't know, I can't think of an example.
So they've got to apply and then he's got to respond in the positive.
Right, that way when somebody says, hey, why are you driving, this parked vehicle home and back? Well, I have this email from trustee that says it's okay for this reason. I was gonna go the long way and pick up mulch or pick up stone or whatever, and it's near my house. Okay, I get it. Versus, if they do it the other way and say, it's a Friday evening and he's doing something else. Dear trustee, I want to take the truck home because I need to take some mulch to my house.
Right.
And then, they take the truck home and, well, I made my request. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't get your permission.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
So we go with by then.
Any other changes? That's not a change.
No.
Back to the original. And I will make a motion to approve the vehicle usage policy.
I second it. All those in favor?
I
Any public comment or wishes to be heard? Okay. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 5th, 3:00 here. Now need a motion to adjourn.
I just thought I'd just say it in awkward silence. And move along your way. We adjourn.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned as of 4:18.